In this video, we're going to look at the second section of Britten's Pan for singing assignment number 3. But before we start measure 6, let's quickly review measures 1 through 5. We are trying to focus our ear on the two-note psi motive that is decorated or transformed throughout this piece. Measures 1 and 2 both decorate the two-note psi motive on F-sharp E. 2, 1, and when it ornaments itself, of 2, 1, 2, 1. Now measure 3 visibly divides into two halves, and there is a descending psi motive in both parts of the measure. The first one is B to A, and the other is F sharp to E. We will label both of those 2, 1, 2, 1. And Britten introduces tension into this measure by doing two things. One, he speeds up the turnover rate of these motives, and secondly, he adds an inversion of the psi motive. The rising motive introduced in measure 3 begins on B to C sharp, and then sequences to F sharp, G sharp. And for both of these, we will do the inverted psi motive. 2, 3, 2, 3. And stepwise motion heavily ornaments measure 3 as well. Of 2, 1, 2, 3. Of 2, 1, 2, 3. For measure 4, I propose hearing the F sharp as a prolonged start of a descending gesture that passes through the E on the downbeat of measure 5 and resolves finally to D at the end of the measure. Now at the same time, the B in measure 4 creates an inverted psi motive with the C sharp in measure 5. When practicing this melodic framework, I suggest repeating any note within the gesture that has been interrupted by the other voice, like this. 3, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 1. Now, with the decoration, it'll sound like this. 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. In measures 6 through 8, Britten introduces a stylistically contrasting section. Measure 6 and 7, we're going to ignore the A sharp for a while. The chromaticism really helps set the section apart, but they're not a structurally significant addition. Instead, we're going to focus our attention on the highest and lowest notes of these measures. Like the first 5 measures, it's actually their longer note values that's giving these pitches their prominence. And I want to aurally connect the D in measure 6 with the E in measure 7. What motive does that create? Well, the inverted psi motive, of course. We might expect to have the regular descending psi motive in the lower voice, but instead we're just giving a pedal A during these two measures. We've regularly associated 2, 3 with the inverted psi motive, and we'll continue to do that here as well. 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. Now you might wonder, why not think of these two measures just in A major and hear D, E as 4, 1, 4, 5, 1. And it's because I'm not interested in hearing the pedal A as part of the D, E motive. By disconnecting the A, 1 from the, that's the lower voice, 1 with the D, E, 2, 3, we're forcing our brain and therefore our ear to hear two separate voices interacting with one another in the texture. The first step in decorating these measures is going to be to fill in the stepwise gaps between them. 2 of 1. Next, I want to sing a leading tone into 2. Of 2, 1, of 3, 1. And I'm using that very handy word of to illustrate these ornamental functions. Of 2, of 1, of 3, of 1. In the beginning of measure 8, we squeeze together measures 6 and 7 so that there's no pause between the gestures. Of 2, of 1, of 3, of 1, of 2, of 1, of 3, of 1. Now, the pressing of these gestures together, along with the crescendo, the accelerando there in measure 8, it's really escalating the dramatic interaction of these two conflicting voices. The A sharp at the beginning of these measures is a burr in these phrases. Spelling the pitch as an A sharp indicates that it should resolve up to B, but my ear instinctively hears it as a B flat instead. Now our key signature is 3 sharps, and A is a pretty prominent pitch in this piece. So if A were the tonic, A sharp would be a sharp 1, right? In a tonal world that would want to go to 2, but B flat would be a flat 2 wanting to go to 1. Let me play the first 5 measures for you, and then I'll play just that A sharp, and try to hear where you want it to go. Does it want to go up to B or down to A? Does it want to go up or does it want to go down? Now in the second half of measure 8, Britten does notate that pitch as a B flat, and by the end of the measure it's curiously back to A sharp. But why? In the context of measure 6, the A sharp creates a fragment of the octatonic collection, right? The half step, whole step, half step. But the resolution to the A at the end of the measure, it really disrupts that octatonic quality. So go over to Blackboard, and in the discussion section, there's a place for you to share your experience, your instincts regarding the A sharp. Do you hear it wanting to go up? Do you hear it wanting to go down? Is there a difference to your ear in the motivic goals depending on Britten notating it as A sharp versus B flat? Is it arbitrary? Let me know what you think about that section, specifically about the A sharp versus B flats. At the end of the first half of measure 8, the two voices are a perfect fifth apart. E, A, and we begin the second part of measure 8 with both voices shifting up a half step. E, A, B flat, F. Once we rid ourselves of the F, the rest of the measure belongs to the whole tone 0 collection. The gradual unfolding of what I've been referring to as the upper and lower voices, it intensifies over this swell to fortissimo and back down to pianissimo. The upper voice moves from F to G flat, and then once arriving on G flat, we move in whole tones up to A flat and finally to B flat. The lower voice walks up the whole tone collection from B flat all the way up until G sharp. Now, most performances that I've heard treat the G sharp as merely a lower mordant to the A sharp. And while it appears to be a simple decorative gesture, I prefer to think of it as the peak of tension between these two lines. Yeah, it's very soft, but a whisper is often more focused, more intense. more controlled than any scream would ever be. So here's the process that I'd like you to use in working on this last part of measure 8. And remember that I'm not trying to get you to simply sing the right pitches. I want you to hear the unfolding of the large-scale musical motives of the piece. So these two gestures are interacting so that the lower voice begins with a pedal B flat. Then the upper voice takes over with the pedal B flat, which becomes A sharp at the end. So first, let's prolong the lower voice pedal as the upper voice is ratcheting its way up from F all the way to B flat. And I would do it this way. 1 of 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. Again. 1 of 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. Next, we're going to reverse this process so that the upper voice maintains the pedal and the lower voice does a kind of two-step up the scale, up the whole tone scale, to meet it. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2. Again. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2. Now, after attending to both voices individually, we can start to put them together in context. And there's, of course, several ways to realize this, and I invite you to try as many of them out as you can. But here's the one I have gravitated towards. One of 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2. Okay, lastly, I would ask you to go on to YouTube and listen to a bunch of performances of this piece. Specifically, I want you to focus on the interpretation of this middle section. On the discussion board of Blackboard, I want you to go list your favorite performance or performances of this movement and identify what exactly you like about it. Please focus mostly on the middle section for now. And I'm not asking you to find a performance that agrees with or demonstrates any of my analysis of this section, if one even exists. Regardless, you should give a thoughtful explanation of what the performer is expressing and why you happen to like it. We're going to cover the final section of this piece in another final video. Thanks.